Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. When a stubborn HOA leader dares to block a private mountain road with her luxury SUV, she ignites a landowner's fury and a showdown no one saw coming. What follows is a legal and viral battle of wills, machines, and justice deep in the backwoods of Idaho. There's a certain kind of silence you only get at the end of a dirt road in the Idaho backwoods, the kind where you can hear a squirrel sneezing in the next tree over. That's what I loved most about my place. 1.3 miles of gravel and pine-needled quiet, bought fair and square from the county back in 2017. I spent the next 6 months clearing brush, grading the slope near the river, and installing proper culverts so spring runoff wouldn't turn the road into a mud chute. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. The road snaked through old-growth forest, dipped behind a ridge, then dropped gently down to my land near the river bend. On both ends, I'd planted metal signs big enough for a blind raccoon to read, "Private Road, No Trespassing," bold black letters, reflective paint, and laminated under plastic like a holy scripture. People respected it, or at least they used to. Friday morning started off normal. I'd driven into town to pick up a rented flatbed trailer with a compact loader on it. One of my renters had trashed a septic pad, and I needed to do some quick grading before the weekend. I had the whole setup hitched behind my F-350, a 30-foot trailer, 10,000-pound tracked loader, flags, safety chains, the works. Nothing you'd want to reverse uphill through a narrow forest road, let me put it that way. But I wasn't worried. It was my road. No one ever parked on it. At least, that's what I thought, until I rounded the blind turn near the sandstone outcrop and nearly plowed the whole rig into a parked Lincoln Navigator. It was just sitting there, blocking the road entirely. Maybe 3 feet of clearance on either side, which sounds like a lot until you're hauling 20,000 pounds through an S-curve. I hit the brakes, stepped out, and stared. Clean white paint glittering in the morning sun like some suburban warhorse. HOA parking permit dangling from the mirror, freshly laminated. And under the wipers, a sheet of printer paper in a plastic sleeve that read, HOA Riverbend Views. Parking for tour access. Please do not move. I stood there a solid minute just taking it in. The road here wasn't wide enough to turn around, not with a trailer that size. Backing out uphill for over a mile with that much weight was just asking to shear a control arm. And this SUV was parked right at the worst possible place. A narrow turn, soft shoulder, and a steep drop just a few feet off to the right. One good skid, and I'd be dragging my rig out of a ravine. I walked around the car. No one inside. Locked. No notes beyond that smug little HOA sign like it was some kind of diplomatic immunity. I took photos from every angle, plates, windshield, tires, and called the local tow company I'd used before. The guy on the phone sounded apologetic but firm. Private road. Can't touch it unless the owner of the vehicle authorizes it. Liability, man. You need a sheriff or a court order. Great. I texted a buddy of mine at the county office to confirm my ownership again, just in case I needed it later. He shot back the GPS coordinate overlay I'd filed in 17. My road was still registered as a privately maintained easement, fully owned, no shared access. Crystal clear. I had every right to restrict entry, but having the right and enforcing it, that's another matter. I waited about 10 minutes, hoping maybe some oblivious jogger or tour group would come jogging back to claim their land yacht. No such luck. The trees just stood there, quietly judging. I snapped the magnetic GoPro onto the bumper of my truck, aimed at the SUV, and hit record. No threats. No tampering. Just documentation. I even narrated a little, stating my name, date, and what I was looking at. Hell, it felt like I was filming an episode of Redneck CSI. Then I walked back to the truck, sat on the tailgate, and cracked open a thermos of strong coffee. I wasn't mad, not yet, but I was getting that old itch. The one that said someone had looked at a clear boundary, a posted sign, and said, "Nah, that doesn't apply to me." And that's when I heard it. The faint electric whine of a golf cart engine rolling through the trees like the world's smuggest mosquito. The golf cart came wobbling around the bend like it owned the place. Lifted tires, HOA logo on the side, and a tiny American flag flapping off the rear pole like it was liberating Normandy. Behind the wheel, predictably, sat Karen Dale herself. I'd only met her once before, at a county zoning hearing last year, where she pitched some ludicrous proposal to make the riverfront accessible to all community members, which was HOA speak for bulldozing rights onto private land. I shut that down with a single GIS overlay and a copy of my deed. She hadn't looked thrilled. Now here she was, bouncing toward me like a wasp in Lululemon. "Good morning," she chirped, as two HOA board members climbed off the cart behind her. One guy with a clipboard and a balding frown, another woman holding a Starbucks and a branded HOA binder like it was a purse. "Morning," I said flatly. "Yours?" I jerked a thumb at the Lincoln. Karen smiled like a Botox ad. "Yes, we're staging a river access tour today for prospective community members. The association has been planning this for weeks. I trust you got the notice." "I did not," I said, "and that's not how this works." "Oh, don't be so territorial, Landon," she said, as if I were a toddler clutching a toy truck. "This road is part of a historical route to the Snake River. It's always been used by locals. We've even filed a formal request to have it converted to limited public access. You should have received a copy." "Yeah," I said. "I got your request 3 weeks ago, unsigned and printed in Comic Sans. The answer is still no." Clipboard guy stepped forward, clearing his throat like a failed substitute teacher. "Mr. Krieg, you should understand this road benefits the entire community. Restricting it only serves to isolate." I pulled the deed from my truck's glove compartment and held it out, along with the survey maps and GPS overlays from the county clerk's office. "Here's what I understand," I said. "I bought this road. I maintain it. I plow it, gravel it, grade it. It's registered as private, right down to the culverts. You're parked on my property, blocking my access. You didn't ask, you didn't call. You just dumped your overpriced SUV across the bend like it was a damn picnic blanket." Karen didn't even glance at the papers. Instead, she crossed her arms and turned to her clipboard lackey. "We're escalating," she said calmly. Then she pulled out her phone and dialed. 911. "What's your emergency?" "Yes, hi," she said, voice thick with false concern. "We're at the North Access Trail near the river, and a man is threatening to destroy my vehicle with heavy equipment. He's yelling, being aggressive, and he's blocking what we believe is a public easement." I didn't say a word, just stood there while the call kept going, my GoPro light blinking steadily. The audio was crisp and clear, and I made sure to speak slowly, calmly into the lens. "She's lying. I'm not yelling. I'm not making threats. I'm asking her to move an illegally parked vehicle from my private road." She hung up, smirking, and turned back to me. "They'll sort this out." "Yeah," I said. "They will." We stood there for a while. Karen and her people retreated to the side of the road, sipping coffee and taking photos of me like they were preparing a scrapbook titled "Entitled Men of the Woods." Meanwhile, I sat on the trailer ramp, watching the sun rise a little higher through the trees. The loader still sat on the flatbed, humming faintly from residual heat. If it had feelings, I'm sure it was just as annoyed as I was. 15 minutes passed, then 20. Then a county sheriff's cruiser rolled up behind my truck. A single officer stepped out. Early 40s, big frame, calm eyes. Name tag read Sergeant Reeves. "Morning," he said, approaching slowly. "Got a call about a dispute over road access." Karen surged forward like a pageant queen. "Officer, thank goodness. This man is preventing our community from accessing the river. He threatened to use a bulldozer to move my car. He's unstable." Sergeant Reeves raised an eyebrow and turned to me. "Your name, sir?" "Landon Krieg," I said. "Owner of this road. Got the documents to prove it." I handed him the folder, then pointed to the camera still recording. He spent a few minutes reviewing everything, cross-checked the parcel number, looked at the road signage photos, nodded slowly. "Well," he said finally, "this road is indeed registered as private property, owned solely by Mr. Krieg. That makes the vehicle in question trespassing." Karen's face twitched. "But we filed for public access." Sergeant Reeves shrugged. "A request isn't a ruling, ma'am, and from what I can see, the vehicle is blocking this gentleman's right-of-way." "So arrest him," she snapped. "He threatened to damage my property." "I didn't threaten," I said calmly. "I stated that if the obstruction isn't removed, I'll remove it myself, using safe methods, as I'm allowed to do on my own land. And I gave them 2 hours. Still have about 90 minutes left, according to my watch." The officer sighed. Ma'am, I can't force you to move your vehicle without a court order, but I can document this as illegal parking on private property. If it escalates, there may be consequences. Karen looked like she'd bitten into a lemon. We're not moving it. Suit yourself, I said. Sergeant Reeves gave me a nod, handed the folder back, and climbed into his cruiser. Call me if it gets out of hand, he said. Then he was gone, gravel crunching under his tires. Karen and her team retreated once again, whispering furiously. I walked back to my truck, leaned against the door, and stared down the road, watching the minute hand tick forward. 90 minutes. That was all the time they had left. Time drags differently when you're counting it down against someone else's arrogance. I stood there by my truck, arms crossed, watching the second hand of my watch crawl. The forest was still, except for the occasional chirp of a jay and the faint ticking of the GoPro's recording light. Karen and her two sidekicks had retreated to their golf cart about 50 yards back, whispering and gesturing like a trio of lawyers in a bad TV drama. They kept glancing at me, at the Lincoln, at the loader on the trailer. They were expecting me to bluff. They didn't know me very well. At the 40-minute mark, clipboard guy marched back up the road with his phone out. You understand this is going to cost you, he said, trying to sound intimidating. You can't just move someone else's property. I smiled thinly. Watch me. He sputtered, turned around, and stomped back to Karen. She stayed seated on the cart, sunglasses hiding her eyes, lips pressed into a flat line. She wasn't leaving, and she wasn't moving the SUV. She thought the law was a shield she could hold up while trespassing on my land. She was about to learn it cuts both ways. I walked to the loader on the trailer. The air smelled like diesel and pine sap. I unclipped the chains, lowered the ramps with a metallic groan, and started checking the hydraulics. The machine had just come from a rental yard. Everything was clean, greased, and ready. I attached the GoPro to the roll cage, angled it toward the Lincoln, and hit record. My truck dash cam was already rolling, capturing the entire bend. Even my phone was propped up on the dash for a third angle. If there was ever a day to over-document, it was today. An hour and 50 minutes ticked past. I called out down the road, calm but loud enough for them to hear. 10 minutes. Karen didn't even twitch. Her two companions were less composed. The Starbucks lady looked pale, fidgeting with her cup. Clipboard guy had started pacing. 2 hours. I climbed into the loader's seat, turned the key, and the engine roared to life, low and throaty. I raised the bucket, eased the throttle, and crawled off the trailer, gravel crunching under the tracks. The loader wasn't huge, but it was built to push. I drove slowly toward the Lincoln, giving Karen every chance to stand up and call it off. She just sat there, arms folded, as if daring me. I stopped a few feet short, idled the engine, and spoke clearly to the GoPro. It's been 2 hours. Vehicle still obstructing my private road. Owner notified and present, proceeding to remove obstruction safely. Then I lowered the bucket and slid it under the Navigator's rear bumper. It lifted easily, back wheels squealing against the gravel. I reversed, dragging the SUV slowly down the incline toward the old log loading ramp by the river. The road widened here, leading to the muddy launch where timber companies used to dump their loads decades ago. Perfect for a very different kind of unloading. The SUV creaked and slid but stayed upright. Its alarm started blaring, a pathetic whoop-whoop echoing through the trees. Karen finally leapt off the golf cart and ran after me, screaming something about criminal damage and lawsuits. I ignored her. The loader's engine drowned out everything but the steady beep of its reverse alarm. At the ramp's edge, the ground sloped sharply into the Snake River. The current was high from snowmelt, water dark and swirling. I eased the loader forward until the Navigator's rear tires were at the lip. Then, with one smooth push of the bucket, I nudged it over. The Lincoln slid like a whale off a dock. Its front end dipped, water gushed over the hood, and with a groan of metal and bubbles, it settled halfway into the river. Alarm still howling, lights flashing weakly. The smell of wet electronics rose up on the breeze. I reversed the loader, shut it down, and climbed out. Karen stood a few yards away, her face a mask of rage and disbelief. Her companions had vanished back up the road. I pulled out my phone, made sure all 3 video feeds had uploaded to the cloud, and took a long, slow sip from my thermos. Obstruction removed, I said quietly, mostly to myself. Karen didn't scream right away. For a moment, she just stared at the sinking Navigator like her brain had blue-screened. The alarm had cut out when the water reached the dashboard, leaving only the sound of the current lapping against metal and the slow, gurgling descent of $80,000 worth of entitled decision-making. Then, like someone hit the unmute button, she exploded. "You psychotic redneck maniac! That was my vehicle!" She charged toward me, fists clenched, eyes wide, and for a second I honestly thought she might try to swing. I didn't flinch. I just held up my phone, still recording, and said calmly, "Back up. You're trespassing and acting aggressive. You've been warned. Again." She froze mid-stride, her face twisting between fury and calculation. Then she spun on her heel and stormed off up the road, yanking out her phone. "911!" she shouted, loud enough for the whole forest to hear. "I want to report a criminal. He just used a bulldozer to destroy my personal vehicle. He pushed it into the Snake River. That's felony property damage, assault with machinery, eco-terrorism. I don't know. Just get someone down here now." I turned the loader off, climbed back into my truck, and started downloading the footage from the GoPro onto my laptop, just in case. I wasn't nervous. Annoyed, yes. But nervous? No. Everything was documented. I hadn't touched her. I hadn't threatened her. I'd given her 2 hours, on record. And this was my damn road. 15 minutes later, a different sheriff's cruiser pulled in. Not Reeves this time, but a younger guy. Deputy McMillan, fresh-faced, probably late 20s, trying hard not to look overwhelmed. He parked carefully, stepped out, and immediately got an earful from Karen. "She destroyed my SUV. He used industrial equipment to commit vandalism. That's a felony. Arrest him." McMillan looked over at me. I gave him a little nod. "Sir," he said cautiously, "do you have any proof of what happened here?" "I do," I said, and handed him the flash drive. 3 camera angles. Footage includes verbal notice, countdown, documents, and complete removal procedure. Road is privately owned. Vehicle was obstructing access. Property owner was present and declined to move it. Her voice is on the recording stating refusal. I've also got paper records and the prior sheriff's report from earlier today. That's in the file folder on the passenger seat. He blinked. "That's thorough." I nodded. "It's not my first rodeo with Karen." He walked back to his cruiser and started reviewing the video on the built-in laptop. Karen hovered near him like a wasp, shouting phrases like toxic masculinity with machinery and vehicular homicide of a Lincoln. The deputy waved her off gently and kept reviewing. Meanwhile, I pulled out my county plat maps and flipped to the easement registration page, highlighting the section that showed I was sole owner and responsible for maintenance and access control. When McMillan came back, his tone had shifted. "Sir, from what I see here, you gave proper notice and acted within your rights as the property owner. You didn't damage her vehicle intentionally. You relocated it off your land. It ended up in the river, but, well, that seems to be a consequence of where she parked." Karen gasped like she'd just discovered gravity. "You're siding with him. He destroyed my car." "No, ma'am," he said calmly. "You parked illegally on a private access road. After being warned, you refused to move your vehicle. He acted to remove an obstruction, and it's all on video. This isn't a criminal matter. If you want to pursue civil damages, that's your right. But right now, you're the one facing a citation for unlawful parking and false emergency reporting." Karen turned bright red. "False reporting. He sank a vehicle. And it's your word against 3 separate video feeds, 2 GPS-verified documents, and a prior officer's incident report," he said. "I suggest you consult a lawyer before escalating this further." She started shaking. "This isn't over. You'll both be hearing from my HOA's legal counsel. This community will not stand for this barbaric behavior." She pulled out a second phone, who the hell carries 2 phones, and started filming me, panning from the loader to the river to the dripping logs where her navigator used to sit. "This is what extremism looks like. We are contacting the news, the EPA, the county board. This is a hate crime against homeowners." I gave her a little wave. "Hi, Karen," she screamed in frustration and stormed off toward her golf cart, where her clipboard friend was pretending to check emails just to avoid eye contact. McMillan sighed, rubbing his eyes. "Mind if I keep this copy of the footage?" he asked. "Keep 2, I said, handing him a second drive. "There'll be more." "Should I expect a lawsuit?" "Probably," I said. "She's not used to being told no." He climbed into his cruiser and backed away slowly, probably rethinking every career choice that led him here. By the time the dust settled, the Navigator was submerged up to the windshield. The HOA folks had vanished, and the road was clear again. I drove the loader back onto the trailer, strapped it down, and finally, Chadar got home. It wasn't until I sat on my porch later that evening, boots off, bourbon in hand, that I saw the local news van slowly creeping down the road. Oh, great. Showtime. They didn't even bother to knock. The news crew just rolled up to my porch like they were delivering a pizza. Microphones in hand, camera already rolling, eyes full of that hungry gleam local journalists get when someone says the words viral footage and HOA scandal in the same sentence. "Mr. Krieg," the woman called out, already halfway up my gravel path. "Sarah Delaney, Channel 5 News. We received reports of a vehicle submerged in the Snake River and allegations of extreme retaliation involving heavy machinery. Would you like to comment before this story airs?" I stood up slowly from the porch swing, set my glass down, and looked her straight in the eye. "You're standing on private land. That road you just drove up? Also private. You're currently trespassing just like the SUV you're here to cry about." She blinked, hesitated, then gestured to the cameraman. "Cut. No. Keep rolling. We're within our First Amendment rights." "Not on my land, you're not," I said, already pulling my phone from my pocket. "You want to talk? You talk from the county easement, 30 feet back." The cameraman stepped back instinctively. Sarah tried to salvage it. "So, you admit you pushed a woman's vehicle into the river with a bulldozer?" "I admit no such thing," I said flatly. "I removed an illegally parked obstruction from my private access road after giving verbal and documented notice. And I have time-stamped footage, deeds, and a deputy's report confirming all of that. You want to see it? Or are you just here to film sound bites for whatever HOA sympathetic hit piece Karen fed you?" That shook her a little. "You're saying you had legal grounds?" "I'm saying I had legal ownership," I said. "That road was purchased from the county in 2017. It's not HOA land. It's not public. It's mine. I maintain it, I pay insurance on it, I post signage, and I enforce access. If someone chooses to block my only access home, that's not a protest. That's obstruction." Behind her, I saw Karen's minivan creeping up the road again. Of course she'd brought an audience. The reporter must have seen it too because she turned suddenly. Ms. Dale, would you like to respond?" Karen all but leapt from the passenger seat, fully made up, wearing a silk scarf like she was starring in a soap opera about HOA oppression. "Absolutely. I have nothing to hide." She pushed forward into frame and immediately launched into a rehearsed tirade about community access, bullying behavior, and how I was known in the area as a dangerous isolationist with a history of aggressive retaliation. I folded my arms and waited. When she started talking about how the Navigator was a necessary tool for organizing riverside nature tours, I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing. "That SUV," I interrupted, "was blocking the only way I could haul my equipment back home. She parked it without permission, ignored warnings, refused to move it, and then called the cops on me when I removed it. That's not negligence. That's malicious interference." The camera swung between us like a tennis match. Karen was vibrating with fury. "And now," she added dramatically, "this man is threatening the press, refusing accountability, and endangering our entire community. I demand legal action." Sarah blinked at her, then at me, then back at the camera. "This is Sarah Delaney, Channel 5, reporting live from a property dispute that's sure to make waves, no pun intended, in Riverbend Views." The second they wrapped the segment, Karen tried to hand Sarah a printed stack of witness affidavits, which, to the trained eye, were mostly scribbled HOA notes printed on cheap paper with the community logo stamped in the corner. Sarah took them awkwardly but didn't seem convinced. Once the van pulled away and Karen retreated to her golf cart, defeated but not done, I called my lawyer. "James," I said as soon as he answered, "I have a feeling we're about to get real busy." He chuckled. "You sunk her car, didn't you?" "I relocated an obstruction." "Right. Send me everything. Footage, maps, prior police reports, signage photos. I'll prep for a preemptive civil filing. She's going to try something stupid." He wasn't wrong. 2 days later, a man in a cheap suit knocked on my door, holding a manila envelope and a clipboard. "You've been served," he said. "Ms. Dale is pressing charges for willful destruction of property, environmental endangerment, and emotional distress." I took the papers calmly, read the front page, and smiled. Thanks. He started to leave, but I called after him. Hey, tell her to make sure her lawyer reads the GPS plat overlay on my deed before she embarrasses herself in front of a judge. The process server didn't reply, just shook his head and walked off. That night, I installed new motion-sensing floodlights at the entrance to my road, double-checked the gate code, and re-uploaded all my footage to a secure cloud server just in case. I knew the game was on now. Karen had played her cards, and they were garbage. But garbage has a way of stinking up the whole courtroom if you don't bring bleach and facts. And I had both. I walked into that courtroom wearing the same boots I'd used to clear tree stumps last week. The irony didn't escape me. I'd cleared a lot of stubborn roots lately, and today was no different. Except now, instead of clearing land, I was clearing my name. Karen had spared no theatrics. She sat at the plaintiff's table in a tailored navy dress suit, flanked by a lawyer who looked like he'd Googled small-town courtroom strategy 15 minutes before arriving. She dabbed her eyes dramatically with a tissue before the judge even sat down, like we were auditioning for a soap opera titled As the River Drowns. Her opening salvo was as dramatic as you'd expect. Your Honor, her attorney began. This is a case about a man with unchecked aggression, a dangerous attachment to machinery, and a deep resentment for the community around him. My client's SUV was violently shoved into the river in an act of pure malice, resulting in catastrophic emotional damage, environmental hazard, and loss of property. I leaned over to James, my lawyer, and whispered, "Did he just describe me as a bulldozer-possessed hermit?" James didn't smile. He was too good for that in a courtroom, but I saw his lip twitch. When it was our turn, James stood calmly. Your Honor, my client, Mr. Krieg, is the lawful owner of the road where the incident occurred. He has documentation from the county recorder's office confirming the purchase in 2017. The road is clearly posted with signage indicating its private status. The plaintiff, Ms. Dale, willfully parked on this road without permission, obstructing essential access. Mr. Krieg warned her verbally and in writing, provided a time window for removal, and only after that time had elapsed, and after receiving no cooperation, did he remove the vehicle using equipment he is professionally licensed to operate. The judge looked up. Removed. Yes, Your Honor, removed. There was no aggression. He documented the process using multiple stationary and aerial cameras. The footage is time-stamped, and we've submitted it as Exhibit C through H. That was when the first real shift in energy happened. The judge leaned forward. You've submitted video. Correct. GoPro footage, exterior trail cam footage, drone aerial footage, and a handheld iPhone video taken simultaneously, all synchronized. Karen's lawyer tried to object, something about privacy violations, but the judge waved it off. If this was a public confrontation in broad daylight on property the defendant owns, it's admissible. We watched the clips together in eerie silence. The courtroom lights dimmed slightly as the projector came on. The video was clear. My slow, calculated approach in the dozer, the visible posted signs, the SUV blocking the bend, my verbal warnings to the empty air, the slow nudge and rollback of the vehicle down the slope toward the old logging ramp. It wasn't violent. It wasn't rage. It was work. Deliberate, careful, unglamorous labor. The moment the vehicle tipped into the Snake River, the courtroom gasped. Not because it was aggressive, but because it was real. The splash was just water doing what water does. Karen burst out, "This is outrageous. This is manipulation." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Ms. Dale, you'll have your turn." James went next level. He laid out the full GPS plat overlay of the deed, marked every coordinate of the road's boundaries, and matched them against the police officer's body cam statement from the day she called 911. We even showed a clip where the responding officer said to Karen, "Ma'am, you are illegally parked on private property. I cannot remove your vehicle without a court order, but you are clearly in violation." That clip hit like a hammer. Karen's team fumbled. They brought up historic use of the river path by previous residents, suggesting that the road was once informally shared access. James countered with the county resolution number authorizing the sale of the road, along with witness statements from the county commissioner at the time. Bulletproof. Karen then tried a motion. Your Honor, I've been harassed, publicly shamed, and financially devastated by this man. My SUV was worth over $80,000. My reputation has been destroyed. The judge asked simply, "Do you have proof that you had permission to park on the defendant's road?" She stammered. "It was for community benefit. People were coming for a river tour." "But you did not receive permission." "No, but thank you." By the time closing statements rolled around, even the bailiff looked embarrassed for her. The judge didn't need long. In review of the submitted documentation, testimony, and video evidence, this court finds that the plaintiff, Ms. Dale, trespassed and obstructed a privately owned access road. The defendant, Mr. Krieg, acted within a reasonable framework of self-enforcement after reasonable warnings. Therefore, the plaintiff's suit is dismissed. Karen gasped. The courtroom didn't. The judge continued. Furthermore, due to the misuse of emergency services, obstruction of private access, and damage to the defendant's reputation, the court awards Mr. Krieg damages in the amount of $65,000. Additionally, the HOA, under the leadership of Ms. Dale at the time, will issue a formal notice to its members clarifying that the Krieg Road is not to be accessed under any circumstances. My ears rang as the gavel struck. I didn't grin, but I did finally exhale. Karen looked like someone had unplugged her from her own body, pale, speechless, and still holding that damn tissue like it might protect her from facts. I nodded at James. "Thanks." He just muttered, "Wait till you see the insurance angle." And with that, the courtroom emptied out. But the war was over. The day after the court ruling, I expected a quiet morning. What I got instead was a local news van parked across from my gate and 2 HOA members lingering near the edge of the tree line like teenagers trying to sneak into a horror movie. I didn't bother hiding my annoyance. I walked out with my coffee mug in one hand and a wrench in the other, just in case today turned stupid again. "Mr. Krieg, do you have a moment to comment on yesterday's ruling?" the reporter asked, practically jogging toward me. "Nope," I said, not slowing down. "Court said it all." She kept pushing. "Do you feel vindicated?" "I feel like I can finally get back to grading the east fence line. That's what I feel." I installed a temporary steel gate with an electronic keypad that afternoon. Heavy duty, remote controlled. I wasn't going to risk another Karen escapade or surprise HOA tours showing up with lattes and pamphlets. I even added motion-triggered lights and new signage. One read, "Private road, not for HOAs, not for Karens, not for drama." That one got a chuckle out of my delivery guy. Later that week, the fallout began. Karen tried to spin the media, crying on camera about being bullied by machinery and persecuted for community values. But once the footage leaked online, it went viral. Not her press conference, but the drone shot of her SUV gliding into the river. Someone even added banjo music and uploaded it with the title Riverbend Titanic. By Friday, members of Riverbend View's HOA had enough. They held an emergency meeting, which someone filmed through a window and posted online, showing Karen yelling at other board members while they tried to vote her out. It was ugly, and when they finally did remove her as president, she stormed out mid-sentence. I got a formal letter from the new HOA board 2 days later. It apologized for the unauthorized use of private infrastructure and assured me that HOA members were officially barred from accessing my road per their updated bylaws. They even sent me a Starbucks gift card. I didn't use it, but I appreciated the gesture. Then came the insurance angle. Karen's claim that I destroyed her SUV didn't fly. Her own insurer ruled it owner negligence on posted private property. They wouldn't cover it. The vehicle was declared a total loss. Her appeals failed. Rumor had it she had to take out a second mortgage just to cover court costs and penalties. Meanwhile, I got calls from neighbors I hadn't heard from in years. Folks thanking me for standing up to her, sharing their own HOA horror stories. Turns out, Karen's reign hadn't just annoyed me. She'd tried to fine people for unapproved lawn chairs and once demanded someone repaint their mailbox to match community earth tones. Peace finally settled over the woods. My road stayed quiet. The gate clicked shut every night with a satisfying hum. The sign stood tall. And Karen. She hadn't been seen in weeks. But I kept the cameras running. A few weeks passed, and things finally started feeling normal again. The nights were still, the road stayed clear, and my gate, blessedly, didn't see a single unwanted visitor. I was back to working the land, managing my rentals, and tuning the occasional diesel engine just to keep the old habits sharp. But one afternoon, while I was checking a pressure line behind the barn, I noticed a county SUV idling by the road. At first, I thought it might be a routine inspection. Then I saw who stepped out. Karen. Hair frizzed, sunglasses oversized, clipboard in hand, wearing some ridiculous reflective vest like she was an official county agent. Two men followed her out. One of them had a map tube. The other, a drone case. My stomach dropped, but I didn't move. Karen marched straight to the gate, completely ignoring the cameras. She held up a document and waved it at my sign like it offended her. Then she started shouting, "This road violates regional water access statutes. I'm here to perform a citizen's inspection under public easement doctrine." I didn't respond. I simply walked to the house and tapped my remote. The gate stayed locked. The cameras did their thing. Her entire performance, complete with fabricated jargon and a self-printed badge, got captured from 3 angles. Turns out, she was trying one last stunt. A forged declaration she'd sent to the county clerk's office claiming that my road blocked emergency ecological access to the river. The same river she'd tried to turn into a tourist trail for her HOA last year. Problem was, the new HOA president, who'd replaced her, caught wind of her solo act and called me immediately. "Landon," he said, voice tight, "Karen doesn't represent us anymore. She took an old HOA letterhead and made up that inspection herself. We're filing an internal complaint." I didn't need to hear more. That night, I compiled the footage, every clip, every close-up of her fake badge, and sent it to the sheriff's office and the county land board. Within 48 hours, an official notice arrived. Karen Dale was being investigated for impersonating a county official, attempting unauthorized entry onto private land, and filing fraudulent documents with the clerk's office. They took it seriously this time. She was arrested that weekend, quietly. No cameras, no HOA members to back her up. I heard later from a friend in the sheriff's department that she tried to claim political persecution by pro-private land extremists. No one bought it. The final blow came when the insurance company sued her for attempting to file a fraudulent supplementary claim about her SUV. With legal bills mounting and no more HOA power to shield her, Karen settled out of court and moved away from the area entirely. Her Lincoln Navigator never recovered. The river swallowed it, and with it, the last of her credibility. I, on the other hand, installed a new electric barrier hidden in the trees, just in case someone else got bold ideas. And the sign at the top of my road now has one more line burned into it with a soldering iron. Try it again. I dare you.